say what they said. And that's, you know, if you want to get smart easy, that's how you do it. Of course, this is just a little gag. It says OB. Dr. Paul is an OB/GYN. He's a medical doctor. He's delivered over 4,000 babies. When he speaks to his pro-life position, it really is from his heart. And there's a little, of course, they're ripping off that scene from Star Wars. It's got the Statue of Liberty. It says Princess Leia. But are you all ready to get the cartoons out of the way and have a serious talk about policy? Well, I'm not. I got one more for you. This is Dr. Paul. You know, the Constitution is on the table. The heart stopped. He's trying to get it going again. And he's a believer in the Constitution. It's the most ingenious document for our country in the history of man, and it is a real impediment to powerful people doing what they want to do. They wish that they didn't have this constantly getting in their way as they try to do things. Okay, but the Constitution limits government. It limits what government can do to you. And Dr. Paul has long been noted as a champion of the Constitution. Before I can even talk about Dr. Paul, though, because people they don't understand where he's coming from. And that's why I so appreciate events like this. You know, in the debates, they get maybe 20 seconds, they get a minute. For sound bites in the media, they get less. Well, you know what? Sometimes the truth is longer than a 60-second soundbite. It takes more than 60 seconds to explain the truth. And that's why events like this are absolutely essential if anyone's going to understand the truth. Because if you just listen to the sound bites, you really can't get it. Because the system right now divides us left and right. And they get people, Ann Coulter will say something ugly about the Democrats, and maybe some liberal will say something bad about the conservatives, and they divide us on left and right. But left-right is one-dimensional thinking. And to figure out where Dr. Paul is coming from, and to figure out where you should be coming from, it's important to understand there's more than one dimension to political thinking. There is a left and right axis, that is true. But there is also an up and down axis. And that's the most important one, because while they're distracting you left and right, the real movement is going on the up-down axis. The up axis is limited government and towards human freedom. The down axis is what I call statism, where the state has its fingers in everything, in every part of your life. And of course, the state can't create wealth, so the way it gets the money to finance all that getting in your life is that it taxes you for it. As someone once said, they tax you to hire your cousin to tell you what to do. Okay? And what we're finding is, I don't care where the politician says they are on the left-right axis, the solutions that are coming up more and more often are down here on the up-down axis. They're towards statism. One candidate may say, I think we ought to have socialized medicine, and if an elderly person needs drugs, the government ought to give them drugs. Another person might say, and that's on the left, they want the government to do all. The one on the right may say, I want to do, like President Bush just did, I want a prescription drug program where the government has this interface. It's a partnership between the government and big companies. And together they deliver the drugs to the old people. And of course they have to get the money from somewhere. So, but whichever way it is, one side says the government should just do it all, and the other side says, well, the government should do it in partnership with corporations. But either way, every problem has a solution that's a government program. If you are to the left and a statist, then you're a socialist or a communist. That's what we call people that they're to the left and they're also towards statism, they're down. If you are to the right and you're a statist, that's called fascism, which is sometimes called corporatism. There's a famous quote from Benito Mussolini. He ran Italy while Hitler ran Germany during World War II, and they were allies. It's widely attributed to him. I don't know for sure if he ever said it. He said, what fascism really is simply a merger of corporate and government power. So fascism, it may be nationalistic, it may be religious, it may be racial, whatever the deal is, the main thing is there's a goal of security for the collaborator citizen, and there's a greater purpose for which individual freedom must be subordinated. You must give up your individual freedom so that we can have national greatness. You must give up your freedom so that we can make you safe. The reasons vary, but the philosophy is the same. On this side, on the upside of limited government, of individual liberty and freedom, you also have a left and a right. Now, over here, the goal is maximum individual freedom of action. That's called libertarianism. Libertarian says, you know what, as long as I don't initiate force, I ought to be able to do whatever I want. If I want to, but smear mayonnaise, just to be radical, I'll give an example, smear mayonnaise on my naked body and go door to door and sell magazine subscriptions, I ought to be able to do that, and you ought to not be able to make a law stopping me. That's pure libertarianism. On the right, limited government is called federalism. And what federalism does is it maximizes freedom of action by balancing individual liberties with communities' rights to establish the rules for their little society as they see fit. In other words, you have a central government that's very limited, and as you go closer to the individual, you allow your government to put on more and more rules. And then, if you don't like the laws in Massachusetts, you can move to Nebraska. If you don't like the laws, you can always move. And if one side is too restrictive or too loose, you just experiment. You see whose way works the best. Competition in the laws produces excellence, just as it does in economics and everywhere else. Okay? The founders and Dr. Paul are right here. Everybody else is from here to here. Okay? Everybody else is from there to there. Now, I'm just going to give you 3 quotes from the founders. I could give you 103, but you've only very graciously given me 20 minutes, so in the interest of brevity, I'm just going to pick 3. But James Madison said, the very definition of tyranny is when all powers are gathered under one place. When every decision, great and small, is made in Washington, D.C., and less of it is delegated to the states, to your hometown, and to your own family, and ultimately yourself. That's freedom. Tyranny is when the decisions are made in one central place, when the money goes to one central place. And unfortunately, you don't have to be very proactive to get big government. It happens all by itself. Thomas Jefferson said the natural course of things is for liberty to yield and government to gain ground. Once you get a bureaucracy who is in charge of a program, I don't care whether it's good, bad, or in between. You've got a group of full-time people. Their full-time job is going to be holding on to their program, growing their program. You're out trying to make a living. Their living is about growing their program until just the natural tendency of people that seek power is to want more of it. And so Jefferson noted, over time, you don't have to do anything to make government grow. You've got to do something if you want to stop it from growing. As a matter of fact, if you're a moderate, you still ought to vote for an extreme government cutter. I mean, if you vote for a wild-eyed caveman who just wants to slash everything and cut, maybe you can hold off the next tax increase for 2 years. Because they are fighting against a tidal wave of growth in the federal government. Okay? Now, you say, well, wait a minute. These programs, they do good things. And I'll grant you, if you throw enough trillions of dollars at something, you're going to do some good. But my question is, if the people who earned the money got that money and kept it, wouldn't they also do good things for their family? Is the government the only one that can do good things with money that people earn? And who will respect the money the most? The person who earned it, or the person who got it to, and of course it always starts off as a good deal. Hey, I'm going to start off helping people, and then it winds up being, look, I've got to give my share to him, I've got to give my share to him, give my share, and let's get a coalition. Let's make democracy 3 wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. Another founder said, the third quote, good intentions will always be pleaded for any assumption of power. The Constitution was made to guard people against the dangers of good intentions. There are men in all ages who mean to govern well, but they mean to govern. They promise to be good masters, but they mean to be masters. All the founders lined up with Dr. Paul. When Dr. Paul says something that drives folks in the system crazy, the founders would drive them crazy. Okay? There's not one thing he says that's not